Well, Dee, when you invited me to come, you talked about your motto or your vision going forward was engaging the extraordinary. And we've been known for being a company that's outside the paradigm, I think just like the library is stepping outside of the typical library paradigm. And we've done a lot of work over the years to establish a culture and a type of operation of a business that's outside the paradigm, and many people have described it as being exceptional, especially in the industry that we're in that's very, very conservative. We're taking the mechanical industry that we work in and trying to modernize it. Just like the library is saying times are changing, if we don't change, we may not be around. And we were saying humanity may not be around unless we make a change. And so we wanted to be a model for a different kind of company and a different culture within a company to make a difference. So we started with Eddie's brains and a little bit of money that I had and a small rented space in Southern California. And we had a mission and a vision. And the mission, Eddie's vision was a beautiful place in a natural setting that would attract the best people that would never want to leave, and where we would make a difference with the technology that we had. And our difference that we wanted to make was to help clean the air, save natural resources, modernize things in an economical and practical way that would help the country and the world and the planet. So we started with basically nothing but our vision and our mission and a motto of Dare to Dream. And Dare to Dream to me was one that I came up with years ago, that if you don't have a vision for where you want to go and have I'm going to say the guts to take risks, you don't progress very far. But if you can take the risk, if you're not afraid to step out of your comfort zone and take the risk and change and try to create change, it's interesting what you can do. So imagine we're in a little rented space in a long row of industrial bays in a building with big metal roll-up doors in the back, and everything looks the same, and just an ordinary industrial space. But we had the vision, we had the mission. This is where we are today. We didn't borrow one penny from a bank, and we didn't go to investors. And we now have in Woodland Park, which is just west of Colorado Springs, we have 450 acres. The building that you see here is our main headquarters, and that's where our engineering happens, and people from all over the world come here, and they're blown away with the culture and the environment that we've created that's completely different from the mechanical world. Electronics, they tend to be more advanced. They have been earlier in their spaces and things like a Google or something like that. But when we started this 25 years ago, nobody in our industry had a space like this. So we stepped way outside the box to create something that we hoped would inspire people and attract good people, and also foster the technology that we wanted to advance here. Our technology is taking the mechanical world, kicking and screaming out of the analog age. Think of an engine that has a camshaft. It's like an old sewing machine. It's like a treadle sewing machine. It can only do this, and that's all it can do. It's fixed and it's linked mechanically, so that's all it can do. But yet you look at the transformation that we have in the world from analog to digital, going from the old computers that filled, as you look at the screen on the left, as you look at the old computers that used to fill a whole room, it had to have air conditioning, that had analog components in it, that for them to operate, they had constant consumption of energy. When electronics figured out how to go to digital, it meant that they only used energy to change states, not to hold in a state. It's kind of like if I had to use energy to hold a door open, and energy was running through my arm the whole time to hold the door open, and I had to stand there and keep holding the door open with energy running through me. That's the way things used to work. But the way we open a door is we open it and we let go, and there's no more energy required to hold the door open. That's what the electronics world figured out how to do. And so when we started our company, when our core goal, our business goal from the very beginning was to convert engines from analog to digital controls, modernize engines in a practical, affordable, simple way, but that could be transformational, just like electronics has been in communications, all the changes we've seen over the last 30 years or so. So that was our goal, was to take an old engine on the left and make it digital, flexible, smart, and small, and do basically help save the environment and the economy by having power generation, mobile and stationary, that's practical and that's affordable and that can be implemented now versus trying to figure out something for the future that maybe isn't practical and maybe isn't affordable or takes rare earth elements and things. So I built this facility. I was scared out of my mind. I had never spent $20 million. At the time, this was a $20 million investment. How did we get it? I started with $100,000 that was in my personal savings, spent it all the first year, and talk about scary. But we kept on going, and what happened was we started going out and networking and telling people and doing things out of the box, like the article on the front of that magazine. There aren't many companies that size that could get on the front of a magazine like that, but I kept calling the guy and saying, we have this technology, it's advanced, and he kept saying, well, is it different, and is it advanced, and what about photographs, and I said, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I have it. We wined him and dined him on the top floor of a restaurant on the top floor of a hotel in Chicago, and we ended up on the cover of that magazine. And that then drew, with the 500 phone calls and faxes, engine companies started calling us. A lot of engine companies started calling us. And we ended up with a business partner who wanted access to the technology, and we said, fine, you loan us the money to build a facility, to do what you want and what we want at the same time, and we'll pay you back based on royalties that come from revenues from your product sales. And they said, okay. So that's how it all started, and this is the building that I built. It's in Woodland Park. It's on 450 acres, and it's totally outside. When I built it, it was completely outside the mechanical engineering paradigm. We had this culture that we started when we were in California of almost like people were coming into your home, into a casual environment, instead of the rigid, fixed engineering environment. I was told by a Siemens employee, former Siemens employee, that we had, oh, you can't do things like this middle top picture. You can't put things at an angle. You can't have the open spaces. You have to have rectangular fake top wood tables with chrome legs, and they all have to have these private cubicles. And I said no, and my husband said, whatever you have in your mind, Carol, that's what you should do. We ended up creating this environment that people from all over the world come to, which I see the library could be parallel. The way I understand it, you're stepping out of the typical paradigm. You're leading nationally, maybe globally, in what you're thinking a library needs to modernize to keep up with things and to stay vibrant and live instead of disappear. If you don't keep up with what's happening, you go away. Eddie invented a digital countdown clock for an irrigation system that we had. Eddie's my genius husband with 175 patents, so he's really the one behind all of this. At the time, there wasn't a digital clock of any type. There wasn't a digital watch, there wasn't a digital clock. But he needed it, he thought of what was needed, he knew how he could marry existing technology with a timepiece. Went all over the world looking for somebody to do it for him, went to all the clock and watch companies. None of them would do it. Finally, Silicon Valley did it, and half of the companies that he went to are no longer in business, maybe more, because they didn't keep up with the times. So we created this wonderful environment that people from around the world come to, and it's interesting what the environment does is you create this new building for the library. It's extremely powerful, more powerful than you can imagine. I haven't been there yet, but I envision when you go into this space, it's going to be completely different than any library is today. It's going to be welcoming, it's going to be casual, people will be roaming around, they can probably even talk instead of being totally quiet. And that's what we did. We created, if you look at the center picture there, we created these central gathering spaces that were informal, almost like coming into a living room. We had purchasing people from large automotive companies that would come in that didn't behave like they normally were. Their whole attitude changed as they came into our environment. One was they were so impressed with being in Colorado and in the natural environment that we put ourselves into. But the other was the whole facility has an aura of this casualness, but yet quality and capability around it. So we created this environment of excitement and innovation and creativity that helps people behave differently as they come and creates better outcomes because of the environment we created, and then because of all the different things that we added to this. We wanted to be a model for new technology plus a new way to run an engineering company, especially a mechanical engineering company, how it should operate. So as I mentioned, I think before, Dare to Dream was a motto that I came up with 25 years ago, which meant being willing and having the courage to step out of the typical paradigm and dream about what you want, because if you can envision it, it's very likely to happen. If you don't envision it, it'll never happen, or very, very remote possibility of something happening. But once you have that vision in your mind, it helps you. We envisioned having that facility. We envisioned having this. Something in a beautiful natural environment was what Eddie wanted, in the environment we were trying to protect. Within a year of talking about envisioning it, when we didn't even have $1 to buy an acre, we had purchased 300 acres and started construction on this building. And it all came from that seed of a vision, setting a goal. Another mantra that we've always had that came from Eddie is everyone's a teacher and everyone's a student. We have a team-based company instead of a hierarchy-based company. I'm the only one in the company that has a title because Eddie said we had to have a president. Other than that, we have functional teams, and we have organization, and we have some management, but we set goals together. We do visioning together, and because the culture is so open, there aren't the typical barriers of a president and a vice president, and where when you mentioned that you knew that we had taken a truck to the top of Pikes Peak, a camless truck. I mean, nobody in the world has ever done that. Nobody still has done that, and that was maybe 10 years ago that we did it now. And it was because we had goal setting with the entire company, and one of the goals that we set, that we decided to have, one of the categories that we talked about was getting more press, getting more recognition for what we were doing. As a result of that, a month later, one of our technicians, a guy working down in the laboratory who would help set things up, came to me with a business plan, put it on my desk and said, we should be demonstrating a camless truck, which we hadn't done yet, and we should be participating in the Pikes Peak Hill Climb. He said that in January, after we'd done the goal setting. He had already gone down to the Pikes Peak Hill Climb office and said, would you work with us? Can we work with you? And they said yes. So by the time he came into my office, he said, and they will work with us. They'll cooperate with us. We ended up, and our people within the organization, now this is interesting, attitude makes a huge difference. He took the vision. He had the ability and the authority to think outside of where his typical daily jobs were. And he came and shared it with us. Eddie and I right away said, what a great idea. We took it to the whole organization, and there were many people within our organization said, we've never done that. We can't do that. We don't have time. How, everything was, no, I scare and fear and afraid of the risk. And Eddie and I said, we think we can. And it was interesting how once we started going for it, the momentum gathered, excitement gathered. We did go to the top of Pikes Peak. Within a year, we participated in the hill climb. Press from all over the world came. Audi and others from all over the world came. We hosted the, what was it? It was the press day for the Pikes Peak hill climb. And as a result of that, ESPN did a video on us for free that played multiple times on TV. So because we don't have the titles and because we don't have the barriers, things like that are allowed to happen. Then we also have this motto, if anything can go right, it will, and at the best possible moment. And that comes from Eddie. He's been saying that ever since I met him. I've made big posters of it. And what it means is as you go through life and as you have business or nonprofits, whatever they may be, there's things that will go right and there's things that won't. But when they don't go right, if you don't panic, if you don't give up, and if you try to look at it from a positive side and say, hey, how can I create something good over this? Or if I don't give up, eventually things will turn around or they'll turn out. It's amazing how that works. And kind of tied to that, I think she's COO, the gal that I think it's COO of Facebook, wrote a book. I can't remember the name of it right now. But one of the things she said in that book was things will never turn out exactly the way you think. And in business, I've found I completely agree with that. Some of the things, like we got the building, but how the business works, the ebbs and the flows, and how you think something will come together versus how it comes together, you still go in the direction you want to go, and you achieve much of what you want to achieve. Sometimes you achieve more, sometimes it's less, or there's a segue in the road that you take, and so you end up going in new places that you didn't expect as well. So it's a combination of positive attitude and being flexible as things change. So then it also goes back to the library changing with the changing times. And if you do that, and if you innovate, which we're innovation that you see on the bottom of this slide, that's what Sturman's all about. And that's not easy either. Going outside of the paradigm, going outside of what people are used to, even not just the staff and the library people itself as you look at who you want to be and how you want to go forward, but how do you engage people in it? You have to, and your culture as well. If you want to change your culture internally or the culture within the community related to how they interact with you and what you do, it takes a lot of patience, a lot of work, a lot of education, continuing to promote. It's good to have mottos like leading the mechanical world into the digital age is ours. We've had that since day one. We've never changed it, and it still applies. And if you keep repeating over and over again and going to different places and using those things, they can be very helpful. The mission that we created when we came to Colorado was this one of Sturman is dedicated to making a positive contribution to the world through our products and our company culture, as I mentioned. And again, that helps you establish a core vision and mission within your community of your people, and with the community that works with you. And at the bottom is another one of my mottos that we've used over and over and over again, is you create your own reality by what you think. If you think it's not going to work, it won't. If you think it could, and it might, or it will, and you don't give up, then it will. It really what you think and the goals you set do create your reality. It may segue and go differently, and you have to be flexible, but without those goals and those visions, you don't accomplish near as much. We were big, we've been big over the years in coming up with acronyms. We ended up, first we had first we had RIGHT, and then we added, the team members came up with these. We said, we kept talking about what we were about. ROAD is an important one of in anything you do, you have to find the resources or be able to have the resources and organization around it. And we set our destination first. And then you look at what resources you need in the organization that you need to get there. And one of the key things within an organization that you have to be very careful of, or as an individual within the organization, if you have a negative attitude toward change, it can affect the entire organization, and it can affect the organization's success going forward. It's almost like cancer. If somebody thinks something can't be done, it infects the group and it grows. Whereas if you can say, okay, I'm scared, I'm not familiar with this, it's risky, I don't know if we're going to succeed, but if you can allow yourself to follow the people that have the vision within the organization that say, hey, I think we can. And if you're, one of the things when I was a little girl, the book, my mother, I made her read to me over and over, and I'm getting emotional about it, was The Little Edge. And, you know, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. If you can keep that attitude, even if you're afraid, and whoever, or be the leader that says, I think I can, that pulls the other people along. But if you're one of the people that is worried about what's happening in the library, maybe it's too big of a change, or maybe we're trying to do too much, or maybe it won't work, who cares? Try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you can it. So, but having things within your organization that helps your organization or the community understand what you're doing, like an acronym or a slogan, those types of things can be helpful. And stick with them, don't give them up. We've had an unusual business philosophy of how we operate our business. We've created an environment that's very different. We talk a lot about fostering the environment, and we did it way before it was popular. People thought we were crazy. Finally, Eddie came up with a slogan, we're the practical environmentalists, so that they wouldn't think we were so crazy. And we're all around relationship building, which our informal, beautiful environment helps create. When we were in California, we used to take people to the beach for meetings, sometimes to our home for dinner. And we carried that informality into the environment that we are now. We have meetings outside. We have meetings in the woods in the summer, and it's wonderful. And that environment creates new things. We would have skits. Our employees would put on skits. Every month we'd take the right road. We'd take a word out of it, or we'd take right or we'd take road, and we'd either go to a certain group within our organization or mix up 4 or 5 people and say, here's what you need to talk about. And we would say it needs to be interesting, informative, and have some humor in it, and talk to the topic. It was incredible what they came up with. Funny, we laughed and laughed and laughed, but those things, the days that we laughed the most were things we would never, ever forget. So we taught, or we fostered things that needed to change within our organization, or things we needed to remember. We had our team members teach it to our team members, instead of one of management standing up and talking at the team members. So the team members directly over all the years have participated in everything that we've done, and improvements we've tried to make in the culture and the teaching. Everything's been team-based. We do have an organization, and we would call it tune-ups instead of reviews. We call them tune-ups, so that it informalizes it. It makes it more comfortable, and all of the things that you typically do within a company, even in working with Mountain States Employment Councils, who we work with, everything's outside the box that we do. We think of how can it be done in a way that fits our culture, that keeps the spirit that we want to keep. And we would also do that then with customers. As you look at the slides that are on the screen, and as I'm looking at them right now, these are pictures of events we've had with customers. We bring them in, we put them in small groups, we have them walk around, we do demonstrations, we have them tell us what they think. Completely different. We walk in the woods with them, we take them to dinner. We do things that businesses don't often do, that develops these relationships. We brought in, a couple of years ago, I got frustrated. Now we have this wonderful facility, And we've made millions of dollars, and we've had terrible experiences as well. We've had big companies try and put us out of business, go all the way to the Supreme Court because they didn't want us to compete, and cook up stories that weren't true to do that. So, you know, there's very high times and there's very low times, and you've got to try and keep yourself in business centered and not going up and down. It's very, very hard to do that. But if you don't give up, you keep going. So I got frustrated that the industry is still not modernizing nearly quick enough for what we need for our health, for the health of humans, the health of the planet, and the health of the economy. And so I invited this group that you see. Many of these pictures are of fleets, major fleets, like Walmart and Waste Management. Walmart wasn't here, but they're part of the group. Waste Management was there, and we had Denver RTD, Colorado State Fleets. We had Clinton Climate Initiative, and then a whole cluster of major commercial fleets. Together, they represented 180,000 vehicles because the industry, like the suppliers and engine builders, weren't modernizing because it would maybe cost them money to change, or maybe they didn't understand the technology, or maybe they didn't want to pay somebody like us, or thought we were too small to have something advanced enough. It's a combination of things. So they move in very slow, incremental steps that don't leapfrog to solve the critical answers that we now all realize need to be solved sooner rather than later. And think about this. We started talking about this 25 years ago. So change isn't always fast, especially if you're in a conservative environment in business. But we've never given up. So I said, let's bring the people with the money together because they have power that we don't have. All of these people came. They spent 2 days with us. We said, wear your jeans, be relaxed. We did a little bistro in front of our fireplace. We had music playing. We had these small groups going. Down on the left I was running one of the small groups, and they moved around from question to questioner. And at the end, they decided to form an advisory board for us. Now we have an advisory board of all these influential people, and we're ready to go back to them now and have them go to the industry where we're now ready for our technology to be produced. And I think they will support us by going to the industry saying, look, what if Sturman technology can help us use half the fuel we use today and be much more efficient with the alternative fuels. Right now, engines are still in the old paradigm, where they can only optimize the fuel they use, which is either diesel or gasoline. So if you put ethanol in it, or natural gas in it, or biodiesel, or any other new fuel that may come up like algae, they don't optimize for that fuel. And engines today don't optimize for the operating range of an engine because, remember, they're a fixed mechanical system. So they only optimize at the worst case. Everything else is unoptimized, from idle to going up Pikes Peak with a full load. It runs efficiently here, but everything underneath, there's tremendous waste, and that's why we have all the emissions. Eddie said, get rid of the camshaft, modernize with our fast little digital valves so that it can be like a computer and do all these things. And the industry saying, oh, you really think you can do that? And we said, yes, now we're ready. We're going to go back to these people and have them help us go to the industry and get it into the hands of people that can make it in large scale. So that's our story, starting from the beginning with a little bit of money and with my life savings and Eddie's patents and his genius and a vision and a mission. And we're still here 25 years later. We've survived, and we are making a difference. We have tremendous respect within the industry. We have gone to large-scale production at a certain level with business partners that have produced it in large scale. And now we're looking forward to the leapfrog happening soon.